Welcome to Club Damingo, brought to you by Cyclone Comics.
Speaking of writing to image founders,
Oh, yes.
I told you this story, right? But I'll tell you again so that other people might be interested. I wrote to Jim Lee to ask him to contribute to Greener Pastures #8, which you contributed to. You were one of the first pages in. You hid like a shot.
How early was I?
You were extraordinarily early. Were you like the second page I got?
I think I might have been.
I've been listening to Comic Lab. I think I've told you that. I mentioned it maybe on the show already.
Yeah.
Which has been interesting. And I know they're mostly webcomic centric, but just to hear somebody talk a lot about Kickstarter and Patreon and just how to gather a community and stuff, I found that pretty interesting. And I don't know. I've started from the very beginning because I'm a completist like that, and I will. I'll be listening to it until I catch up to the very latest episode, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm getting to that point where I'm thinking maybe I need to listen to something else for a week. Because I'm just hearing those two voices, those two very American voices, and they're great and they're funny, and there are definitely times where I've had to stop what I'm doing so I can laugh and try and hold the laughter.
Yeah.
Really interesting podcast. I'm a bit disappointed that we don't seem to have anything in Australia at the moment besides you and me. And that came out of nowhere by accident. So yeah, I asked you this, I think, last week or something, right? Or 2 weeks ago. That there's nothing else out there at the moment, is there, Australian-wise?
Not that I've been searching for it. I do know that there is a little thing coming back. I'm not going to say too much because it's not my position to say anything.
Wow.
But there is a small show coming back that has been on hiatus for a little while, which is a good thing. I think the host is coming from the right place, and he's got a great idea to sort of refresh what he was doing. But other than that, as far as as high a profile as these things are, Australian comics centric, or at least talking from an Australian comics point of view, I don't think there is much at the moment. That's not to say next week that'll change. So
that's true.
Yeah. And you
have to remind me after we hit stop on the recording to tell me who that is. That's good to hear. I'm very interested to see who that might be.
Yeah. Hey, have you heard talking about Australian comics? No, talking about American comics distribution companies going bankrupt or in Chapter 11. Have you heard the latest about the Diamond thing, where
No.
they were redirecting some sort of funding to pay out higher end staff bonuses or whatever for doing their, this is all in the liquidation process that was found out, and the liquidators or the Chapter 11 lawyers went, no, that money that you're funneling towards these staff members should be funneled towards creditors. So we're putting a stop on that, and we're redirecting funds to where they should be. So
good. Far out.
That to me is an indicator of big fat rats jumping off the Titanic, and they got found out. That could be wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not a lawyer or involved in a situation, and I don't know any more than what I heard as a headline or two on the internet. But if it is true, that's not a good indicator of where their integrity is, as far as following what they should do as far as getting money to creditors first.
Yeah, so. I haven't been following it at all, but I saw a headline saying, referring to a rumor. So a headline referring to a rumor. It's all I know, but maybe McFarlane is going to buy it.
Oh yeah, I heard that as well.
Okay, that'd be cool. Like, that's the kind of guy we need in, right? I reckon
but you wonder how much it'd have to be gutted and reframed. As I said, the old antique axe analogy of how many times you have to replace the head and the handle and still call it what it is. That if he was to come in, how much of a clean sweep he'd have to make of the place Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he like gutted it and rebuilt it, and who knows, maybe even renamed it or whatever. But if the most uh, the largest, even if it's like in trouble now, the largest distribution system that we've got taken over by someone like Todd McFarlane, who I think and would hope would have his heart in the right place as far as people like you and I and other indie comic creators, as well as the big comic companies. His heart would probably be in the right place to make it work for the comics art form instead of for the the investors or whatever,
right. Yeah.
So
Now
that'd be interesting.
he's one of the ones that never went back to Marvel after starting Image. Is that in your reading of his career? I mean, Jim Lee and Liefeld, and I think some and Larson and a few others have done work back at those companies eventually over the decades.
I think you're right. I think he's pretty adamant about that too.
Yeah.
Because just before you hit record, we were talking about people like Liefeld and Silvestri, etc. And you were saying you possibly don't have too much of their work at your place. And I was going to say you never got that Heroes Reborn thing where all the Image people came back to restart.
I saw it and I was aware of it.
4.
Yeah. I saw it and I was aware.
I got it and never got around. I never got around to reading it, but I was pretty excited to think that, not because I thought it was going to be like that smashing or amazing or anything, but I thought that's an interesting thing. They're almost buying back the Image guys to make Image versions of, which is what it was, because I think it lasted 12 months and then it was reverted back to some other version of Marvel as well. So
I think timing wise, that crashed with the whole Marvel bankruptcy thing and new owners, and it was just a case of bad timing, because it probably might have had legs if the business side of Marvel wasn't shaky and going through the changes that it was at the time. But I do recall that McFarlane wasn't happy with that at all. And so I suppose my point is that McFarlane looking after Diamond would be very, like Image Comics is very pro-creator, as you say. If he was in charge of Diamond, he would probably have that same, not anti-Marvel DC, but more pro-independence and pro-creator owned. And the stuff that Image is all about, that would reflect in Diamond if he was to take it over.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so, and that's what my expectation would be.
Yeah.
I'll write to him and I'll tell him.
Good luck with that. Yeah.
Speaking of writing to Image founders,
yes.
I told you this story, right? But I'll tell you again so that other people might be interested. I wrote to Jim Lee to ask him to contribute to Greener Pastures #8, which you contributed to. You were one of the first pages in. You hid like a shot.
How early was I?
You were extraordinarily early. Were you like the second page I got?
I think I might have been. Is
that
ahead of the deadline?
Oh my God, that's so ahead of deadline. The deadline that I let slip a billion times after I said it. I think it was I can't remember now whether it was actually Nicola or Dean that was first. But all you pros, I'm pretty sure that was the first three. Either Nicola or Dean. So Nicola's like Dean Rankin, and you were the first three to hand over. But anyway, Jim Lee, I wrote to him, and I just found his DC Comics email address on the internet somewhere, going, it's probably not even his. He just wrote, and he wrote back within 5 minutes. He wrote back to me within 5 minutes with a really lovely email, with a reasonable excuse or a reasonable reason, which was, I work at DC, I'm exclusive to them, I can't actually contribute, but it sounds like a project, and thanks for sending the photo. I sent him a photo of me and Michael Michelandos and Jim Lee when he was here for OzCon in 1990, whatever.
To refresh his memory.
All holding our OzCon awards that we had all won that year, and to show him that I'm a real person and there's actually a connection here. But yeah, it was great. He was really lovely to write back immediately. So
that's nice. Yeah.
Very unexpected.
Jim Lee's been popping up in my life a little bit the last couple of days, because I think I was reading on Bleeding Cool that which I have on my phone right here. I'm going to read out this news item. Let's see. Just get rid of all the ads. Thursday, 20th of March, by Rich Johnston. The heading is, all of Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb's Batman Hush 2 will get giant-size issues.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Article summary. Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb's Batman Hush 2 gets the giant-size treatment from DC Comics. Each installment or issue will release in oversized 11 by 17-inch format, mimicking artboard size. Fans can enjoy the stunning details of artwork from Lee, Williams, and Sinclair. The first giant-size issue is available from March 26, 2025.
Wow.
So
2 days from now.
Yeah, and they're retailing in American dollars, $14.99 cover price.
Holy crap! That's like $30 for us.
Yeah.
For an issue, for a 20-page issue. But oversized. So what are the dimensions? 11.5 by what?
By 17. It's the same size as American original art.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what paper stock they're going to be doing these things on. One assumes that it's going to be quite stiff for the large tabloid size, because that's essentially what it is. It's, original art tabloid size.
Yeah. So you're saying it's basically A3 size then, just about A3 size.
Yeah. Like the same size that a artist edition would be if there was a hardcover collection of Jim Lee's art. I assume it's going to be in colour as well, so it's not like
I was about to ask that, yeah.
Yeah, I assume it's just the comic, but just done oversized so that it's nice and big, which, as you know, I've always been a fan of, and it sort of annoys me a little bit, which I think we've talked about offline in the past, that what's your thoughts on oversized issues in American comics or in comics in general?
I think I'm pretty well trained that I'm satisfied to read the comic in the US comic size, in that it doesn't bother me that it's the size that it is, right? But I'm also pretty well trained in that when I buy a European piece of work, if it's at US comic size, I know it and I feel it, and it irks me a lot. There's a Dutch artist named Joost Zwart, who's a bit of a national treasure over there, whose work I really adore. And I discovered him when I backpacked through Europe 30 years ago. And I bought a French edition of his work, of a collection of his work, and it was in that beautiful album size, and it was hardcover. It was amazing. And I saw Fantagraphics, like 20 years later, were reprinting not it, but a lot of the work from it and other stuff in another volume. And I bought it immediately online because I couldn't, I was hoping to read some more of it in English. I haven't read a lot of his work in English. And it arrived and it was US size. I'm going, no way. It felt like it was paperback size, it's just the wrong size for what it was supposed to be. It's like trying to read Tintin in those little or asterisks in a little version. It's just you know what size it's supposed to be. Yeah. So I'm actually pretty comfortable reading X-Men at US size. In fact, I'm pretty comfortable reading it in digest because I grew up with those Title digest black and white reprints that we had in News Agency. I read a lot of them that way as well. Right. But yeah, I get what you're getting at, and I've got some artist editions of things, and when you get them large size, it's pretty amazing.
It strikes me that it's a business decision that's flying in the face of an artistic decision. That of course the artwork would look better at size as it was drawn, so 100% of original art size. To me, that's inarguable that artwork would look more appealing, particularly superhero comics at size. Sure, reducing them will tighten up and diminish any kind of small mistakes and stuff like that. But if you know what you're doing and you've cleaned up properly, you should be able to still, if you're selling your artwork, your original art, and it's not a digital artwork process, you'd be mindful of making it as presentable as possible at A3 size or original art size. And as you also know,
so what? Why don't we just do our artwork at the US comic size then, and then it is being drawn and reproduced at the exact size?
Good
It's
point.
coming to it from the opposite direction.
But
The whole
you
reason
wouldn't
why
be
you
able
draw.
to have the detail. You'd be there for ages under a microscope,
Yeah,
magnifying
true,
glass, doing cityscapes and things like that modern superhero comics demand.
true. Yeah.
That's not to say I noticed. Not I didn't notice, but I've always known that Will Eisner, in his Contract with God and other graphic novels that he's done later on in his life, were done almost at print size, if not print size.
Yeah,
That
true.
he and because of that, he reduced the amount of panels on the page, and he was seeing the page as a holistic unit, even more so than what superhero comics are traditionally doing as well.
So that was my other point, right? Is that if you go too big, you no longer can absorb a page. You are only going to be absorbing parts of the page as you read through it. Don't you think that's an issue as well? If it goes that large, I don't think a European album is so large that happens. But if you start to go to A3 size,
I don't think. I think that you have a point, and I think you're starting to top out at 11 by 17 at A3 size. Any larger than that, and it starts to become awkward to read, but as you say, also awkward to parse. But I think if you're designing an art project for A3, that your problem solving works into that as well. You're being aware that it's being read at that larger size.
Meaning what? That you would put on more panels? That you would look at it in two halves instead? Or
no, not necessarily, because that would be a lot of extra work. Because I've experienced this before in the past with when I did a tabloid newspaper comic of Flash Damingo, and I reproduced some of my stuff at original art size, and I was very, very impressed in it, and I wanted to do more in that format, which plays into some of the decisions that I've made with this new Jackaroo comic, which I've decided, same as how Jim Lee has burst a bloody bubble on oversized editions to talk about today. So
So I didn't mean to step on you. Let's get this. That looks amazing.
We hadn't talked about this before the show. That like all bets are off. I might as well talk about it now, just to establish the fact that I've been trying to get this thing done for the last couple of years, way before Jim Lee would have thought about it. And of course, it's just frustrating that sometimes the time is right for oversized comics. So my new Jackaroo comic is going to be oversized and in color. And so this is a print run that I got just to test the format and the paper. As you can see, it's nice and firm and doesn't flop over.
Yeah.
And
what's that on the back? What's that on the back, Gary? What's on the back?
Oh, that's a dummy ad. It's not finished.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So have you got it like a US comic size that you can put in front of it as well? Because we need that context. Amazing. Look at that. So what's the dimensions on that, Gary?
315 high by 200 wide.
200 wide. Wow.
Now, the trick about this is that I would have...
That's 3 centimeters wider. Yeah.
I would have... It's at the same proportions.
Yeah.
Get the other way.
Yeah.
But it's restricted to the machine size that my printer Baden prints on. So I would have gone tabloid. I would have gone much larger, like a newspaper size if I could, but I was restricted to the size that he can fit on his machine. So this is the maximum that a digital printing press, or his one that he uses, can actually produce. And because of that, it's the same price as doing an American comic size.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, as a business, he might price them differently, but the trick is there's no difference between. He would trim away a lot of excess paper to get to the US comic size, but as far as making a decision on print costs, this should cost the same because it's using the same amount. There might be a little bit of extra toner, which might adjust the or whatever laser ink or whatever they use. But ostensibly, because it's the same paper that you're using, the size paper that you're using, then it's the same price as well, but you're getting a larger.
Very cool.
So I just did a little bit of a test page there of color and stuff like that. So
awesome.
And it's on, and all these. This is reprinted a couple of times over the past, and it's always been on crappy paper, like newsprint or the original, newsprint basically. I've tried to emulate. This is now on a white stock that actually holds the black and white art really well. And you're saying if it's on such nice quality stock, doesn't that allow for people to scan it at a higher rate and be able to produce their own editions? And I say eventually it's all going to be coloured, so they have the problem of scanning this, but the colour will protect the artwork from being used as black and white art as well.
No one's going to reprint it, surely.
At worst, they'll scan the pages and put them up online for free, which is it's hard to police now anyway. So
yeah, that's just going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But wow, that's amazing. How many color pages are in there? I know I feel like you only want to show me that splash, but
there's only the one.
How many color pages?
This is purely a dummy issue. So there's one page of color there just to see how it transferred from my color palette that I'm using in Affinity Suite or Affinity, the Photoshop version by Affinity. So it was a test run just to proof of concept. So it's not 11 by 17. It's not as big as Jim Lee's, but he's got DC behind him and I don't. So yeah.
So you're not 11, but you're 10. Did you say 10 inches? No, 20 centimeters wide. Yeah, so it's about 8 inches wide. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
It's very exciting, and I've seen, just to tell the listener, I've seen a couple of other pages of test color that you've done, and I'm such a again, I think it's because I grew up reading a lot of black and white reprints of American comics, and I'm not real good with color myself. I find it very difficult to work with color. That I actually really love black and white, and the whole thing with the indie black and white boom and all of that. I really love black and white comics. So when someone like Jeff Smith says, "Oh, and Scholastic is gonna be reprinting this in color," I go, "Oh, selling out." Well, it should be in black and white. That's how you envisaged it, right? It should be in black and white. And the same with the Jackaroo. But then you look at Jeff Smith's colored bone and you look at your colored Jackaroo stuff and you go, "Oh man, it actually looks amazing." There's nothing detracted. In fact, I think it's actually adding to it because you guys know what you're doing.
Well, the only other sample, which I think is what you're talking about, is the colored bit there, which I don't know whether that's going to maintain itself. That was a nighttime color scheme there for the Jackaroo. And that's just from a JPEG. That's not a high quality anything. And it really stood up really well during the printing process. Yeah.
So, it's all going to look amazing. And you've got a great color sense. And you're well, tell me, like, before I put words in your mouth, are you restricting the color palette, or you're
it's going to be it's going to be very plain. There's going to be not much gradations or tonage or anything like that. It's going to be flat color as much as possible, because the consideration is that when I originally drew the artwork, it had letrotone on it, and it had different kinds of shading of photo dropouts and letrotone and all kind of stuff. So I've got to be mindful that it doesn't all fill into mud, which is another reason why I did that test run to see how the colors that I've chosen hold together under certain circumstances. So it'll be very.
Did you put any color under a letrotone to check that? Because you've got a graphic design background, as well as I do, that if you're going to put a color behind it, it probably should be solid cyan or solid magenta.
That's right. No, I haven't, but I know that I'd be approaching any of those half-toned, those screen dots with a lot of red flag. The color behind it would be. It'd have no black in it for a start. Whatever color mix is there would be fairly pale, and it would have no, in CMYK there would be no black in the mix whatsoever. So there'd be no and plus it's not being as reduced as much as well. So the letrotone dots remain quite large or larger than if they were reduced down to US comic size.
Well, when you work in color, Gary, do you the line, like when you're in Photoshop, the line art layer, right? Do you worry about that being just black only, or do you make that a rich black, or do you just let it be whatever the black is that Photoshop tells it to be when you convert from your bitmap or whatever to a color file, or are you doing two separate color files like the old-fashioned European comics where there's the color and then a completely separate plate on top of that?
I am checking the blacks all the time, but I think I come down to a rich black layer for the line art all the time.
Right.
Because that alleviates any color shadow if you've got color that stops underneath your line that you don't actually see it. The rich black, which is a mix of certain other colors as well, defrays that sharp bleed that you get underneath some open areas of black. You don't want that color to be obvious. And it's a small risk, but it also detracts from the art if it's there. And if you remember looking at any of the old Marvel color comics from the 70s and 80s, that their printing was all over the place. And yeah, so you want to
that's what concerns me. If the plates are off and you've got a rich black on delicate line work, and then you get 4 sets of line work, black, cyan, magenta, and yellow in the print, it's like that's a risk you're taking, right?
Yeah. But I'm also very mindful of bleeding underneath the outlines of the shapes that you're colouring within. That there's always an expand your selection by 1 or 2 pixels before you fill it with colour.
For sure, for sure.
And a lot of people get tripped up for young players is that they don't do that. They just colour dump, and that's a bit dangerous as well, because it creates fuzzies around the edges. Let alone is hard for the printer to match up if there's an offset print job that you can't align those things properly on the plate sometimes.
It's difficult. So, all right, I'm just I thought I had another question, and I think it's gone. It'll come back to me probably not.
Anyway, the whole Batman thing with those issues being released oversized, really not validation, but if it's good enough an experiment for DC to run with, it's not the reason I would have done it. I would have done it anyway. I was doing it anyway. The question that I still have to have answered is whether I do it only as deluxe oversized editions or offer it as an alternative, so that I get a print run of oversized color editions and maybe a US comic size edition that's just black and white on gloss paper or on high quality paper. But, it's Australian comics, and I don't particularly see the need to offer too many variations because there isn't the market for...
Yeah. We the fans of Gary Chaloner and the Jackaroo, we just want to read the best version of the comic, I think.
Well, that's what this iteration, it has new art in it in some spots. It has a very minimal amount of panel redraws, like things that have just bugged me over the years. And a total relook at the script as far as typos and readjusting things.
Right.
Sorry?
Yeah, right. No, typos, very important. Yeah.
And it's frustrating how many slip through over the years, where you just think, how many editions has this been reprinted and I've missed that all that time?
Yeah.
Get yourself an editor, or at least a second set of eyes, like a wife or girlfriend or significant other that can sit down there and with a red pen and go, "You idiot! I thought you had a higher school education."
Exactly.
Yeah, it's there. Not
cool.
there.
So, but my point is, I would always say more Challoner more often. Absolutely, because I want as many pages out of you as possible. So if there is a black and white, like not ultimate edition, but like the version of this brand new remastered version, if there's a black and white US size and a color album sized, I'll be getting both. But if you had to choose one, I would just say go for the album color version. Like that is the new high standard ultimate version of the Jackaroo. I don't know what your fan base, other than myself, would want to do. How many of them would want to read both?
Well, I can get that answered really quickly. Let's yell down to my fan base. Hey, fan base. Yes. No, she's cooking. She's not listening.
Okay. So yeah, that's the decision you've got to make, I guess. But yeah,
Well, like
My
you,
bottom line, on that would be, if you have to do one, it's got to be oversized color.
yes, well, I've come to the same conclusion. But if there is a screaming need for it, and I don't think there will be, because the other decisions that were made about doing the oversized edition is the retailer and the shelf space and the storage space and the collector storing it and the comic shop stocking it and all those kind of things. And I came to the conclusion that at the very least, these things, this oversized edition, deluxe edition, is going to be seen as a boutique edition of the book. And if someone else wants to come along and offer to redo it for comic shops and bookstores, or a trade collection in comic shops and bookstores, that's a different deal. But as far as what I'm doing for this small print run, deluxe sized editions, that's the way I'm producing it, and everything else flows from that. And it may diminish my sales because the retailer might say, I can't stock that thing, Gary, sorry. But that's their decision, something that I have limited control of. I'm approaching it from a creative aspect of, this is the best that I can see my art in, and it's the best that I can see as far as print product and results in the hand. That's what I can control. Everything else, I'll jump those problems as I come to them, and they may not develop, so there may not be any problems at all. Yeah,
and I know in previous conversations we've had that your and my idea of larger scale distribution, like, they don't meet up very well. Like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next year, probably, or the year after, with Greener Pastures for international distribution. So I want to keep within the parameters that will make it as viable as possible there.
Yeah.
And you're going, I don't give a shit. Like, I want to make what I want to make, and for me,
for me, that's someone else's problem. As I say, I'm doing this boutique edition in this format for my own reasons. If someone else wants to come along and go, hey, I reckon the Jackaroo is really great, I want to get it into bookstores and do a trade collection, and that means doing a US retail size book, that's their decision to make, not mine. And that's the deal that I'd say yes or no to. So it's a different thing. You and Greener Pastures, you're sort of holding on to that bull by the horns yourself and making those decisions yourself. So that's why I totally understand the decisions that you are making and have to make. I totally get it, but it's just different outcomes, I suppose.
So the other thing is, like, your work is gorgeous and slick, and every time you've done an American franchise superhero comic, it's always looked amazing and not out of place, but obviously different to everybody else as well. So, it's got everything going for it. But I also feel like the Europeans would just lap it up as being not Jim Lee or most of American superhero comics. It's got enough of its own unique aspects about it. And I think at that size, at album size, it would be fantastic for you to kind of aim at a European market. And you're talking to Titan at the moment about the John Law reprint that's available now, just become available. And I don't know, I reckon you should lean on them pretty hard and say, well, what do you guys reckon? How do we manage this? How do I get it into France, Spain, Germany, etc.?
I'm not sure whether the Jackaroo in particular might be too Australian.
No, that's like saying Mobius's work is too galactic, right? They like stuff that's not. They did one of Mobius's biggest sellers is Blueberry, which is a spaghetti western, right? They love westerns. They love stuff that's not set in their own. No, totally. They love a good story and they like amazing art, and that's the two things you've got there in spades.
And that, coupled with another reason why I'm going oversized, is that there's a big difference between opening up a package from Australia and holding a US comic in your hand, and opening up a package from Australia and seeing this oversized edition. There is a physical, a tangible difference in perception of the product when you're flipping through these pages. whether you like my artwork or not. It's just more attention getting.
Yeah, get it.
It's
You've got
different.
you holding it in your hands really is selling me on it. Can I talk about me for a minute?
Yeah.
So this is something that very few people have seen, right?
Oh,
This is
yeah. Yeah.
this is that. I mean, that's the cover that was printed for Adventure Illustrated 1, which I should have a copy of here somewhere. No, I don't think I do. Why do I not? So yeah, that's the cover from Adventure Illustrated 1, which I've then repurposed for that specific. No, I don't have it here. That specific edition, and I've used the Greener Pastures logo
That looks
being
great.
around too much. Yeah, thanks. Using it for the short film. But what this is, you'll see there's a little subtitle, an introduction. And what I did was I took the first few pages of number 1 and chopped them up a little bit and consolidated them a little bit into well, I'm trying not to give you spoilers, into a very concise kind of opening, a little bit more concise than what the opening of number 1 is. You can't tell, but I've also tried to put a yellow kind of thing on it, and I didn't push that hard enough to make it look like old pages.
And that's
but a
on
little
nice
bit more
paper as well.
It's on, pretty good paper. But it also says like 30 years ago, 6:15 p.m. Kukan, like, which is also different to what issue number 1 says. But then it goes into this full color material, which is what you published in Adventure Illustrated 1 and 2, but in black and white. So full color Greener Pastures,
that's beautiful
stuff. The colors are by Louis Joyce, who you will know from Godzilla, Skate or Die, and a few other bits and pieces like that. I asked him to color it, which he did, and it looks amazing. So the reason why we put this together was so that we've got like, I don't know, 50, maybe 40 copies of this to hand out to people when we're trying to sell the television show.
Right.
So without something in color, I don't think they'd probably go for it.
Right.
But the thing that's just backstory, because what
you're going to
I'm
get
getting
orders,
to is,
you're going to get people emailing you going, I need one of those things. I need one of those.
Yeah, well, you can have one. Everyone else is going to be $50 a pop because there's not many of them, and I need them. Yeah. So
that's great. Yeah. Color,
really
just
good.
Amazing. Good on you,
and,
Louis.
And again, I'm going, no, my stuff is drawn for black and white, and yes, I'll get it colored for this commercial reason, blah blah blah. And then the colors are coming back from Louis. I'm going, oh man, can we just color? Can we color every issue of Greener Pastures now?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing, I think I've said to you, have I said to you that I'm going overseas in June, July?
No.
Have I not?
Ah.
So my father passed away recently, and he was born in Malta, and I've never been to Malta. So
you're a Malteser.
I'm an Australian Malteser. That's right. So yeah, he was cremated, and we're going to take some of his ashes back to Malta and scatter them. So for about 2 or 3 days in Malta, there's going to be 14 of us in the same place at the same time. So my family, and as in Anne-Marie, Samuel, Annabelle, and my mum, and a couple of cousins, and my brother and his wife and his kids and their partners, and so there's going to be a bunch of us. Anyway, because I'm hopeless, I'm going overseas, and my immediate thought is, I wonder if I could do a signing in a comic shop over there. So we're going Sydney, Dubai, Malta, Paris, back home, and I've already got somebody in Dubai who is pretty keen for me to come and do a signing, because they obviously don't know who I am, so they're keen for it. And I'm talking to people in Malta about doing a signing there as well. And rather than bringing all my comics and trying to sell them, I thought I might do a special edition of that, because it's a taster. It is a taster, and that's something that people will actually really enjoy getting a hold of, I think, at a signing of someone that they've never met. But you're holding up that oversized one. I'm in Dubai, Paris, and Malta. I should do the larger version.
The cat is out of the bag.
I'd love to. Yeah. So
How big is your coloured artwork? Yeah, that's lovely. Is it A2 size coloured?
uh, I'd have to double check that. I think it is, but it's definitely high enough res that it will go up that extra. What is it? Extra 20%, 10%
Yes,
that
yeah,
you do?
18%, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, right. No, I reckon it will easily go up another 18%.
I reckon do it. I reckon do it.
Yeah, I reckon do it too. And that's also
Particularly
again,
for
I'll
that,
only be
particularly for that plan of that trip signage.
yeah,
Such a great usage of that bump up of size.
yeah. And I won't overprint many, but I'll overprint a few. And if there are people who are interested in Australia, then I'll have a few. But so yeah, so
Mm.
that you holding that up, and I'm going, oh my God, I think.
You
I
sort
always
of
think
you look at it.
Gary's such a numbskull. No, Gary's such a numbskull. But look at him; he's actually got something clever there. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, amazing.
yeah. It's you don't know it until you see how big it is against the US comic. It may not look very big on screen, the difference, but when you hold it in your hands, it's a very tactile thing. It's a very
Yeah.
tactile thing, and it's just big enough where it stops being it stops becoming awkward. No, it doesn't start becoming awkward. The
Hmm.
size is just right.
Yeah, it feels.
Yeah.
See, I've got a copy of the Flash Domingo tabloid that you did. Unfortunately, only one. I should have bought more than one. I'm pretty glad I've got one copy. Um, and as soon as you get it home, it's already folded in half, which means it's never quite flat, which means you always got this undulation in the artwork. And I thought as an experiment, it was great, and it was great fun. And as a huge fan of the artwork, it's great to see it at that size. But as a reading experience, no, not for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
But I think what you've got there is a really good um, kind of
Middle ground.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I'm curious to see what this Batman oversized edition looks like, to see how they solved those problems of
Yeah,
size at 22
I'll, I'll,
pages or 32
I'll,
pages.
I'll be going into a comic shop specifically to look at it. Probably not to buy it because I reckon it'll be about $30 for a single issue. But I'll definitely go in to have a look at it, like you say. So,
Yeah.
um, what have you got in comic shop wise? You've got Area 52. Is that?
Yeah, and I haven't been in there for a while. Last time I went in there, they had just some graphic novels on the shelf. I don't think I think it was might have been just coming out of COVID, and they were, like low ebb as far as their stocks on the shelf. So I haven't been in there since.
So
But yeah, Area 52, and there's one called Dan Solo, which is a suburb. What suburb is it in? Mooner, I think.
and so does Area 52 get floppies monthlies?
They used to, as I say. I don't know whether they still do now or whether they're trades only. I think they would probably take floppies as far as regular orders. I think they would try and minimise shelf stock as much as possible, but that's a guess. I mean, I'm not them, so.
Oh, right. I don't think I've heard of Dan Solo. Just looking it up. Yeah, in Muna. Hmm. They've got quite a large shop front. It's a double
Yeah,
shop
yeah,
front. So
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, they have some
cool.
interesting back issue boxes that remind me of the old book exchange kind of. It's all very comic
Yeah,
centric,
right.
of course, but boxes and boxes and of old stuff. Like if you wanted to pick up some undergrounds or some alternative press from the 80s, they might have it in those boxes lingering in there
Ah,
somewhere.
cool. Yeah,
So
yeah.
had a bit
Cool.
of, has a bit of the a whiff of Comic Kingdom about it, except on street
Right.
level.
Yeah.
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 No rickety
Comic
upstairs.
Comic Kingdom was awesome for that. It was like an archaeological dig. You'd see how far back you went the last time you were there, and then try to go from there to hopefully find something new. Got a copy. It's not up here, I don't think. Got a copy of the studio. Barry Windsor
Oh,
Smith,
yeah.
Kaluta, Jones,
Yeah.
Wrightson. Dirt cheap. Still in the shrink wrap.
Wow.
It's down. It's down. I think it's downstairs. And I think I've still got the price. Like I put the price. I peeled it off and put it on the inside cover. And it was pretty cheap. People can't believe it. And I went back to get a second copy, and they're all gone because, like an archaeological dig, every so often back back then at Comic Kingdom, he would go through stuff and just rearrange stuff, and all of a sudden, stuff that was hidden was at the top of the pile, and you go, "Oh my God, this has been sitting here for 20 years, never seen it. I'll buy one, thanks." And then next week it'd be gone. So yeah, it was.
Now that
I
was the
wanted
place.
to.
That was the place that
Go
had
ahead.
the staff that were that always gave you the hairy eyeball, as if
Yeah.
you're going to shove something under a jumper and walk out.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, so that if you actually got to know them and chat to them, like still a bit gruff, but I don't know. They were fine. They were
Yeah,
fine. But
yeah.
there's a story I forget. I'm pretty sure it's a comic creator of some sort, or their friends. One time went in there as teenagers, 3 or 4 boys, purposefully looking as if they're being dodgy, but not actually doing anything dodgy, just screaming "run," and they all ran, and they hadn't stolen anything. They just wanted to take everybody for a ride. So everybody's following them out, and they go, "We didn't do nothing. We just called out run and ran, didn't steal anything." Yeah, poor Comic Kingdom. What a rep they had. Their sign is finally on, and I say finally, probably for a year or more now. But the Comic Kingdom sign was at the front of the store for ages, and I felt like going out there one night at 2 o'clock in the morning and stealing it. And I hope someone's got that. I think that should be heritage listed. The Comic Kingdom sign, open 7 days with a big piece of cardboard stuck on the top saying 6 days. So it's just like I think a really important part of Australian comics history. Who knows where the Land Beyond Beyond sign went to when they shut down? All that stuff.
Did you used to go out to the Bondi Junction pre-Comic Kingdom store at Bondi Junction?
No, I never did that. I don't think I ever did that even once. But I went to Comic Kingdom in various places. Because it was on the corner of Liverpool
Castlereagh and
Elizabeth, or was it Castlereagh? It was just there near.
Yeah. I remember the place. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that I went there for a long time. Really pokey little place before they opened up on Liverpool down. Yeah. Towards Chinatown, when they had the really big 3-story joint, and so yeah, that was my daily or monthly circuit to go to King's and Comic Kingdom, and Comic Kingdom opened like 3 joints at once at one point in town, just to get the stock out.
We were very blessed. We were growing up with all that little circuit in town. And if you had time, you'd go see a movie at the Hoyts Entertainment Centre or Village.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That Hoyt Centre, when it was still Hoyt's, with the little sci-fi bookshop under the stairwell. Did you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That was incredible. They had some weird fanographics and indie stuff in there that I wouldn't have found anywhere else. And only like 2 or 3 things. They didn't have comics, but they had comic-sized magazines or whatever that were about comics. So like the X-Men checklist, and then that was successful. So it was the Fantastic Four checklist, and with amazing cover art by Byrne and Perez and Cockrum, and all this incredible indie like fan art on the inside, but at just sub-pro levels. And
so you get all this American and English fanzines.
Fanzine type level stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Gould's a moment ago. Across the road, you go to Gould's, and they'd have this huge table with the sides, wooden sides on it, and just a million bootleg underground comics in there that kind of blew my mind every time we go through and find Furry Freak Brothers and weird stuff. Yeah.
Do you remember a place across from Hoyt's? I think it might have been associated with the little store underneath the stairs inside the cinema complex, but it was an upstairs shop. Big old wooden staircase. I was on the first floor, and it was a science fiction bookstore that had a lot of imports from England and the UK. And they had things like House of Hammer, a lot of horror magazines, a lot of independent, a lot of the UK comic scenes like 2000 AD and stuff like that. And
no, that doesn't ring a bell. So you're not talking about Gould's, because Gould's was at least 2 floors.
No, but Gould's was street level entrance.
Yeah.
No, this was upstairs in a business arcade, and it was an old rickety, really wide stairs, brown banisters and the whole bit. wooden banisters. And you go upstairs to a big landing before you go to the doors. And yeah, it just was this upstairs science fiction bookstore that was amazing. And that was part of my circuit as well, because I picked up all the old House of Hammer magazines that had John Bolton artwork in it and stuff like that. So it was amazing. And I think they may have either expanded into the cinema or they downsized enough to move into that cinema space. I think it might have been the same people.
It doesn't ring a bell. It might have predated it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But there was a pretty good circuit to go on when you went into town on the weekends after school. And
yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
What do you reckon?
I think that's it.
Yeah, we'll call it quits. We're boring people now, talking about our old man memories.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so oversized editions. Go big or go home.
Let's rock. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to go home. I'm going to go big.